Hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for tuning into this short screen tutorial on the Nazi Party and the changes that took place within it between 1924 and 1929. For this tutorial and many others, please visit historychappy.com. Okay, there are four main, most significant changes that took place. So the change of tactics and strategy, the changes to administration and party finance, the changes in the split that occurs within the SA and the SS, and the propaganda and wider appeal of the Nazi Party. So they're the four main changes. Now, to get an appreciation of the extent of the change that occurs within the party between 24 and 29, we can refer to Richard Evans' book here. In 1924, he described the situation of the Nazi Party seemed almost irretrievable in the wake of Hitler's arrest and imprisonment after the Munich Putsch. So, near enough, down and out. Irretrievable, that means that looks like it can't get any better. But we know by 1929 it's a different story, and a lot of change has taken place within the Nazi Party, irrespective of the Wall Street crash and Great Depression, which is to come 1929 to 1933. Lots of changes has taken place within the party, irrespective of that. Now, Richard Evans says the Nazi Party by 1929 had become a formidable organisation, its regional and local levels staffed with loyal and energetic functionaries, many of them well educated. Its propaganda appeal was channelled through a network of specialist institutions directed at particular constituents of the electorate. So a lot of change has obviously taken place in those 5 years within the Nazi Party itself, even though the Nazi Party between those years did not achieve much electoral success. Now, there are some pitfalls when considering the Nazi Party between those dates. We need to avoid the superficial and shallow argument that goes something like, the Weimar Republic was doing well, it was the Stresemann era, the golden years, the high watermark of the Weimar Republic, whatever you want to call it. And therefore, the Nazi Party was completely irrelevant in the late 1920s. That is true to an extent electorally, because they obviously only got 2.6% of the vote in 1928. But lots of changes is taking place within the party to put them in a position to be successful should the opportunity present itself. We know the Nazis got just 2.6% of the vote in 1928 elections, but like a sports person who has maybe not made the first team, they don't go away and give up. They get to work essentially, preparing really, really hard for when the opportunity might arrive, which we know it does in 1929 with the Wall Street crash and the subsequent Great Depression. The Nazis are not inactive, far from it during this period. They are proactive. They are driven and dedicated towards their goal. Okay, so just because they are evil and some of the things they did were really, really evil, that doesn't necessarily mean they are idiots. They are hard at work, doing what they need to do, putting what they need to put in place to be successful when the opportunity presents itself. Now, the first biggest change is probably about strategy and tactics. Hitler, prior to the Munich Putsch and during it, is all about grabbing power, violent putsch, seize power, revolution. He writes Mein Kampf when he's in Landsberg prison, and one of the sort of key themes there is that he is going to hold his nose and go into the Reichstag. So he's going to use democratic means to get elected and then abolish democracy from within. So he's going to play the democratic game. He's going to play his part in the democratic process, so he can then annihilate it from within. So here's the quote: "Instead of working to achieve power by armed conspiracy, we shall have to hold our noses and enter the Reichstag against the Catholic and Marxist deputies. If outvoting them takes longer than outshooting them, at least the results will be guaranteed by our own constitution." So essentially, he doesn't believe in democracy any more than he did before the putsch, but he's just going to use democracy as a tool to get what he wants. So no more violent putschs. He decides that's not going to work. He is going to use democracy to kill democracy. So a big change of strategy and tactics there, even though the goal of him becoming Führer remains the same. Okay, some of the grisly and we could call it boring stuff that happens underneath the bonnet of the Nazi Party involves administration and finance. He puts in place two really, really highly efficient organisers to run HQ, Buller and Schwarz, and he puts in place a system or network of Gauleiters, so local party leaders, to run each Nazi Party region. He does that in 1926. So essentially, the Nazi Party goes from being a small, localised, provincial Bavarian party to a national party with a national structure. with fiercely loyal Gauleiters completely subservient to him and only him in place. So the Nazi Party now begins to take on the trappings and mantra and logistics and organisation of a national party, even though it's not necessarily that successful at this period. Hitler will also pose as the vanguard against communism and left-wing nationalisation of big industry to attract financial support from industrial tycoons in the early 1930s, such as Thyssen, Krupp and Bosch. So that will give him the money he needs to further bolster and improve the Nazi Party. So he's got efficient local organisers and national organisers as well. He becomes a national party and he poses as the vanguard against communism to get massive financial support from industrial tycoons. The second thing he does, well, the SA and the brown shirts already exist before and during the Munich Putsch. But when Hitler goes to Landsberg Joe, he realises the SA are actually quite loyal to their charismatic leader, Strom, the bull-necked soldier who can be seen here and his brown shirt. So Hitler decides, whilst he's not going to do away with the SA, he's going to need their quantitative backing and their muscle. He wants a group more loyal to him that he can trust, and he puts in place the SS. It's set up by Julius Streck in 1925, Hitler's chauffeur, but it's very quickly taken over by Heinrich Himmler. They're fiercely loyal to him, and Hitler can trust the SS, come rain, wind or shine, where he can't the SA. And as we know, in 1934, the Night of Long Knives, Hitler is going to do away with Ernst Röhm and have him assassinated. So now he's got this qualitative, smaller SS group, as well as his SA, who he's going to continue to use for muscle and to smash up communist meetings, protect his own meetings, etc. So he's got a new group, the SS. Propaganda is obviously a massive part of what the Nazi Party did, and they're sort of, if you want to boil it down to its crux, they involve simple messages disseminated in various ways. Many of them quite new and innovative for the period: radio, newspapers, posters, films, gramophone, mass rallies. Dr. Joseph Goebbels is put in charge of propaganda, and essentially what he does is, as well as using these mediums, he just focuses the blame for all the ills of Germany on the Jews, the communists, the November criminals, the Weimar politicians. But he does that via numerous mediums. So he essentially concentrates all the hate and the ills that Germany is suffering. He concentrates it on those very, very specific groups. And if we look at some of the quotes here about Hitler and propaganda, it's actually quite simple. Make the lie big, make it simple, repeat it over and over again, and people will believe it. So essentially, Hitler definitely does appreciate the power of propaganda. He says, make people believe heaven is hell, or vice versa. Make it simple enough that the least intelligent person can understand it, and it will stick. And Hitler, obviously, he says in his speech, he does this in his speeches, uses raw emotion and hysteria for the many and reason for the few. So keep it simple, and eventually it will stick. Disseminate it by as many mediums as you can, and eventually it will work. So there you go. If you get a question in the exam, an 8 mark one from Edexcel asking about what the changes that took place within the Nazi Party, you'd have to pick any two of those, but you're going to have to explain why one is more important than another and or link them. Now, if you want to prioritise your changes, you're going to need a sort of dedicated section where you explain why one is more important than another, even between the two factors or at the end. So it'd look something like that. So I've said here the formation of the SS was more significant than the introduction of Gauleiters because it gave Hitler his bodyguard. This meant that, blah, blah, blah. The Gauleiters played an important role, but this was not as important as the formation of the SS. So make sure you're really explaining as well as just stating the order of significance there. Thank you very much for watching. There's a quick recap of the key points. You can find this tutorial and many others on my YouTube channel or www.historychappy.com. Thanks for watching and goodbye.